Could be and maybe live.
Sounds good.
Here we go. We're live. So, everybody, hello, planet Earth, and welcome to Lilia's live streams on Wednesdays. And thank you for joining us for the 4th edition of the Reflective Conversations on Gender Transition, which is an educational interview series with Maynard, who's here with me. I'm Lilia, and my pronouns are she and hers. And today we also have some special guests hailing from the East Coast of North America. First, author and educator Maynard, welcome. And what are your pronouns?
She and her. I'm going to add it in right now on my name.
Good idea.
Hi.
And also we have Paula here now, and later on we're going to meet Derek. Welcome.
Hi.
And your pronouns, Paula?
She and her.
Fantastic. So now we've got that cleared up. So today's theme focuses on opening spaces to discuss the journeys of partners of people in gender transition. Our title today is How a Partner's Journey Led to Trans Advocacy, but I'm sure we'll touch on many related points today. So first, viewers, I just want to let you know, please tell us below any of your questions in the comments or on the side, wherever it happens to be on your device, and we will try to incorporate them into the conversation, or we'll attend to them at the end. And we're particularly interested on any themes regarding parenting or partners for trans people, of trans people, sorry. So we can include them today. So Dee,
yes.
When I first met, we wanted to mention at the Philly Trans Wellness Conference in 2019, which led to a live last December. And we did together here on YouTube. So it's in the playlist, folks. You can find it there. And that led to this series, this beautiful series. And now this is the 4th. I can't believe it already.
I know. And our guests really have been wonderful, really. And Paula will be no exception to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, both of you. So I'll hand it over to you, Dee, now. Take over the interview.
Oh, okay. All right. So hi, Paula. How are you?
I'm good, Dee. How are you?
I'm good. I also met Paula at the Philadelphia Trans Wellness Conference a few years ago, and I was doing a workshop, and Paula, you came to it, and
so I'll hand it over to you, Dee, now. Sorry.
Oh, great, no problem. And I'll hand it over again. How lucky am I? And so the magic of technology here.
Yes.
And so when we met at the workshop, I offer when I do my workshops, I always give people my email, and I mean it, as Paula can attest. If you want to get in touch with me, I will get back to you. And so Paula did. And Paula, when we met you and it's got to know each other better, you explained to me how you remember me. So why don't you explain a little bit, and then we'll go from there.
So absolutely. At the Philly Trans Conference, you kind of separate away from your partner to go into your own, classes and everything. So I entered your class, and it was for the partners of trans individuals, right? And there was probably 50 seats in there, but there was 100 people. People were like sitting on the sidelines everywhere in there. And beside me was a girl that I'd met on a Facebook group, and then another young lady that we had not met. And we walked in, and you got up there and you introduced yourself, and she started crying, she was brokenhearted because her world had just changed. And at that moment, you stopped the whole assembly. You crawled over as many people as you needed to crawl over to get to her, just to hug her. And from that point on, I was like, oh, I like this. Like, I want this. I want to be that kind of person. So that's how I first met you.
Well, I remember, thank you. When I present, sometimes there are people that your eyes migrate to, and I noticed you immediately. And of course I noticed the person next to you, and I could tell that this person was in pain. And, the thing, and the thing I have learned is that everybody, when they find out their partner is transitioning, they're in a different place. They have a different history, a different background. They have some information they may not. It may be part of some of their knowledge bank. And so when I create the rooms, and I think it's for most people who run workshops on this topic, you want to create a space that's safe, and that it's a private place where a person can express anything they want without any judgment. And being a teacher, first and foremost, always, I've had students in my class that would just be sobbing, and I needed to understand what was going on. In this case, I had a little more understanding, but so I did what I would normally do. I'd crawl over little bodies to get, well, of course, I don't mean little bodies, but in this case, it was adults, but, I taught little kids. So, and to hug that kid, because sometimes the nonverbal communication is really something you have to be in tune with. And sometimes people don't have the words to express. It's not just people who are in transition that sometimes don't have the words and just have the feeling. It's the same thing for partners and parents and even educators. So, I thank you for reaching out to me and telling me that story and sharing it today. And Paula, the only thing I want to thank you about is I know that you started a book club using, so because I was noticed in Philadelphia workshop, somebody else was noticed, and then they told my now publisher about my work, and they interviewed me, and then I got my books. This is the book, The Reflective Workbook for Partners of Transgender People, Your Transition as Your Partner Transitioned, because that was a perfect example of the story you just gave. And so Paula started a book club, and I was invited to come speak and talk there, which I was excited. And then once I did that, because what I noticed was there was, as this person needed to express some way, I noticed that there were there's a lot of books and resources out there that were memoirs and things like that, but there were, and they're great resources, but there wasn't anything for partners to reflect on their own journey and to be able to write and do exercises, learn the vocabulary, and to be educated, because as a teacher I brought that in, and also be able to write almost like a diary or a private place. So then parents started asking me, so then I created the reflective workbook for parents and families of transgender and non-binary children. Your transition is your child transitions. But as on the 19th, we're going to do our next interview. It's for also parents and family members, people who are adults, not just kids, because you're always a parent's child. And then the last one, teachers were asking me about they had to help their students who were in transition and how to understand for themselves and reflect on their own thoughts and feelings so that they can support their students. So this was the reflective workbook for teachers and support staff of trans and non-binary students, your school's transition as your students transition. And I want to say that thanks to last month and everybody's donation, this book is now going to be at 175 boxes, which is through an organization called Hope in a Box, and 175 rural communities will get this, along with there'll be a total of 20 to 25 different titles, and that will be in this box to help in schools and libraries. And we raised so much money that they're going to be putting in at least 30 for the fall boxes. So I thank everybody who helped make this possible. So Paula, yes. Enough with all of that information. And now I want to, as Lil always says, let's get the party started. So tell me how long have you and Derek been together?
We've been together for a little over 9 years. We've been friends for about 11 years.
Okay, 11 years total.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so how did you learn that he needed to transition?
He'll often say that I saw it before him, because when he would perform drag, I would see the smile on his face and the confidence and all of that. And then it was after a TV show that he finally was able to confide in me that, because I'd asked him, and he was like, no. And then after the TV show, he was like, I am. Yeah, that's it.
So you were already familiar. I was going to ask you how you educated yourself about transitioning and stuff like that, but were you already familiar with a lot of that?
I wasn't that familiar with it, but having been under the rainbow for so many years, I've met, a few transgender individuals, and I had no clue what was going on. It was the beginning of a lot of lessons learned.
Okay, so you mentioned that he was doing drag. And
Yeah.
so I know sometimes when we talk, you go back and forth between two names with him. Do you want to just share a little bit of that so that if you start referring to him by a different name, we'll all understand why?
So Trey is his nickname, and Derek is his real name. Yeah.
Okay. And so did that connect to his former work with that, or it just happens to be a nickname? I thought it was part of the.
No. It's his middle name. It's just a nickname from his middle name. Yeah.
Oh, so it had nothing. I guess in our conversation, I didn't know. Good. Thanks for clearing that up for me. I learned something new. No friendship here. And so then how did you educate yourself more about, to understand and the community more?
So I think the biggest thing was listening, being in the community spaces and listening to those around me. I did a lot of Googling. I did a lot of listening to him, open, honest communication with him, to understand it. But mainly the education that I've had is from doing like the workbook, doing different, readings that I've done. But also we were in the spaces. We've been going to all kinds of different conferences. Once he came out, we started exploring more and more.
Okay. And so sometimes when you know something or you think something, it's a lot different when you find out that things really are what you might have thought. So do you remember any of your thoughts or feelings that you had when he did confirm this? Like what went through your mind, or what was it? Relief? I don't want to put words in your mouth. What was
I don't know if I would define it as relief, but I'm a very realistic person. I'm not optimistic or pessimistic. I just look at what's ahead of me and I just tackle it and do it. So it was just this thing of, how are we going to make this work? Like, what do we need to do? How do we begin?
How did you begin?
I think it was taken, I will often say I take one day by one day. And what I mean is, like, I evaluate the day. And if it was good, if it was bad, good compared to bad, then I'll keep going. And then I'll tell the other partners, like, if your bad starts being more than your good, then you need to reevaluate and see where your situation is. So we would just go day by day. And as things come up, we would just honestly sit down and talk about it, or be able to communicate with each other of like, okay, so how are we going to deal with this or this or this?
I think that's beautiful, because that's like the ultimate reflecting on something. And Lil, did you want to add in something? Because I saw your adorable finger go up.
Yes, I just wanted to ask on behalf of one of our viewers, you mentioned the book club, if that's still going, and if new members are being accepted into that book club, that was useful for you.
So it is still going. We've only been a couple months in. We're on chapter 6 right now. And if you're listening, book club, and I'm wrong, don't beat me. We do the first and third Thursday of every month. And because the chapters are done in such a way, you can jump in at any time, but we have already done the previous ones. But yeah, please get in contact with me.
Thanks. There are 15 chapters. So there's plenty more to do. I think that means there's 9.
Right.
And then I think that thank you. That's a good question. And then Paula and I may be doing some stuff after that cycle together. We talked about maybe running, doing one together or figuring something out. So, but she's a great leader, a great guide. She comes up with like pulls out really important things from the book and then adds things in. I don't know. I really think that she's a great ambassador of the book, and I'm so proud to know that she chose this to do it with. So, Paula, I'll gush over you all the time, and thank you for that. And because really, she's done so much work in the partner field that we're very aligned with. That it's just, I feel really safe to know that she's representing this in this way. It makes me feel very safe knowing that it's going to be true to the text, so that's a great question. Thanks for chiming in there, Lil. Keep doing it. And how did you take care of yourself? A lot of partners speak to me, and I included like the deserving, distressing, delights, and self-care when a person is supporting someone else's journey. Because your transition as your partner transitions, how did you do self-care for yourself, and how do you do with this now even?
So one of the things that I vowed once I felt like I was able to is to be the person I wanted when I found out that my husband was transitioning. So I present myself in all of my meetings and with our group SOTI as someone who will always be there for you. And if you tell me something, then it will only go to me. It won't go back to anyone else. And you have a place for you to come and complain or talk about those things that no one else understands. So part of my self-care, I guess, is the act of service, because giving to other people and seeing that their day may be easier is an act of self-care for me. I know that's kind of weird. But another thing that I really enjoy is I love the water. So anytime that I'm able to get near a lake, an ocean, a swimming pool, a bathtub, any of those things, that is, you can find me there. You can find me swimming.
I think that's really great, because it's almost like your meditative type of place that calms you down, right? And actually, I feel the same way. For me, I express that a lot. There's just something, that's why the covers, they have water on the front, because that is why. It's one of the reasons. And also because I feel like, you go with the waves, and you're so cute, Lil. She's so funny. No, but you go with the waves, right? And sometimes you feel like you're drowning, and sometimes you feel like you're able to steer, well above it if you were like a vessel. And that I think that, so it's beautiful that we're aligned in this way, that water is very soothing. Some people find going into nature, right? Mm-hmm. And that is part of nature. And something that I noticed when I went to the group, I'm not going to share anybody's name or anything, but and if you need me to stop, I want to say this, that I always say this to stop, but I didn't. We are live, so anything we say, everybody's going to hear. If there's anything that I say that triggers you or anything that you're uncomfortable about, stop me right away, because this is about creating a safe space, just like the workshops. This is a very intimate, large workshop type of thing, but please do stop me. So one of the things that I, in the book club when I came to it, and I'll come again, of course, is that what makes it so beautiful when we do the workshops or when you run this type of thing is that we don't have to explain, anybody doesn't have to explain the fluidity of pronouns sometimes, or the fluidity of name changes. We all just go with it. And it's, there are times that you just talk about the movies you went to, and, family things that don't involve coming out to the family, and just living life where every topic isn't based on, not that there's anything wrong with transitioning. Like I want to say that I wholeheartedly embrace all of that, but sometimes everybody needs time to focus on other things in addition. And so I feel that it's a beautiful thing about the distressing part. And I noticed that there was some people who were sharing about those paths and those spaces that were created, and those moments where people could just be themselves and not have to explain themselves in any way, because their
Right.
transition, a person transitioning is a really important and critical part of a couple's life together, and sometimes not together. It can, you know, I'm speaking with you who really was very affirming, and not to say the person isn't affirming if they don't stay together, but they're affirming their life. And part of your transition as a couple is that you remain together. Some people's transition as is not to remain as a couple, sometimes as friends, sometimes not, sometimes coming back. But in this case, you know, that's what your path was. But there are people I know in the group that are you know, not sure 100% about everything, and it's a place to talk about that. And as the workshops, you know, when I run the workshops. But I think that it's really beautiful how you created a place for people like that. And you know what I'm talking about, right? You noticed that that's something you want to expand on that a little bit, because you're, you know.
I think one of the things I often say is people will probably think I'm a proponent of staying together, but I'm a proponent of you being happy, you living your fullest life. And if that is with or without your partner, then I will be here as a tool, as a help me to be able to help guide you if you want to stay. And even if you want to leave, I can help that as well. Because I can't tell you what works in your life. I can give you some of the tools that have worked in my life, but I can't tell you what to do in your life to make it work. And a lot of people I feel is like adamant about you staying together. And it's like, that's not always the way it's going to work. You know, any relationship, what people consider as a normal relationship, goes in and out of ebbs and flows and divorces, you know? And so that's the same with us. It's not always based on the transition. It may be that that's the thing that was the end, you know, like I can't take anymore. So.
Right. You know, I think that it's a beautiful point to and to embrace everybody where they're at, and often people remain friends, you know, and share a love / children, and also family histories, and sometimes people end up staying together through a portion and then not, and some people separate and then come back. So there's a whole range of outcomes, and that again, people often make the assumption that a relationship ends because a person transitions, but that doesn't need to be. It's just like every other relationship. Things happen and people go their own ways, and because a person transitioned in the relationship doesn't mean that was the reason why the relationship ended. It could mean, but it doesn't need to mean. And I think that that's sometimes an assumption that's made. Paula, you find the same thing when you're doing advocacy work? Yeah, I think that that's what happens. It's so great that when you present at conferences or you connect with people, right, that we end up being able to have parallel helping and servicing, and that we also are teams together, that we're all like trying to raise the voices of the partners, and in turn supporting the trans community. And I think it's really clear when you're doing your work. Tell me about your nonprofit organization. You know what? Can we bring Derek in, because I think that he would really add a lot in, because I want to talk about the advocacy work you've done together. Okay. Is that okay? Even though I want to ask you about it.
Yeah, sounds good.
I don't think he would forgive me if I just started this.
He probably wouldn't, you know, but let's see.
Okay. Okay, assemble each other here. Lil, anything else coming in that you want people, any comments that people are saying, or any questions?
Someone from Angola said hi. There we've got Angola in here. Atlanta in the house. Sophie is
hi, Sophie.
Sharing her greetings, and yeah, just making some comments about how great the book is, and wanting to know more about the book club. So if there's a link that I should share about that, then yeah, maybe one of you can pass it to me.
Right. And that's great. And you could always reach out to me about it, and I can get you in touch with Paula and any other book clubs, because there are others, but Paula really is quite a special leader.
Welcome, Derek.
Derek, hello, honey bunny. How are you?
Hey,
Hi,
hey
good
everybody, how
morning.
you doing?
Good morning. Derek is very much a night person, I should say, but has so much personality. So I was like, Derek, can you try to like wake up a little early so you can be your normal bubbly self? Because so it's Derek. So hi, how are you doing today?
Hi. Good. It's 10:30, so it's not like I'm not awake. We have a ring light and it's really, really bright. So that's why you see me wiping my eyes. That's what it is.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
iced tear and stuff, right?
Mhm.
Okay, you will learn, anybody who's watching, that they are the most adorable couple together, like just the most. Yes, look, he's beautiful. I was going to try to stretch through the screen and do it myself. I'm hoping that, anyway, we'll go on. Little mechanical stuff there. So we were just starting to, I was just starting to ask Paula about your nonprofit. Would either one of you like to explain a little bit about it? And then I'll keep asking you questions so people can find out.
Sure.
Source.
So to talk a little bit about Ubuntu, that's our nonprofit organization, and the name is.
Spell it, Derek. Could you spell it for people?
Ubuntu. And the name is Swahili, and it's an African proverb. And what it means is I am because we are. Ubuntu began as basically a resource. It is what she and I could not find at the beginning of my transition. I have to give credit to Black Trans Advocacy Conference based out of Dallas, Texas. I attended a regional conference and then a national conference. And it kind of really springboarded me into being like, okay, like this is a great resource. It's a conference that happens every year in the springtime. It's canceled this year due to COVID. If you have a chance, make sure you check it out. But it really gave me this sense of belonging and community. And I was like, I cannot be the only one here in my area lacking this. And I had a conversation with Paula. We were having already several conversations because prior to going to the conference, the regional and the national conference, we couldn't find anything. I just so happened to find my therapist on Google, which has been a godsend. I still see that therapist. Her name is Devaney Morgan. I happened to find her on Google one night just searching. But even she at the time didn't have any resources. I would ask her, you know, is it just a group of guys? Is it just somewhere we can, and it was nothing she could tell us.
Google didn't bring up anything.
Yeah.
Facebook didn't bring up anything.
It was nothing.
It was like, we were like.
And so at some point, she and I both looked at each other like, we are not the only ones lacking this. And so Paula, myself, and our other co-founder, we were like, yeah, let's start this thing and let's be this resource. And so it has started with two support groups, empowerment groups, because we empower each other by talking about our experiences. And Paula talked a lot about how having a safe space to come to and just talk about issues that you might have. But what she didn't say is you get a chance to celebrate your accomplishments too. Because I know when I started growing hair, like right here, I was like, babe, you see it? You see it?
That one hair.
You know,
Yeah.
And so she could go to
Partners,
the group.
please say yes.
Yes.
It's just so hairy. Your
Yeah.
beard looks so full.
So she was able to celebrate my happiness and me growing my little, tufts of hair, my first two right here. And just the different things, or if I was having like some mood swings or something, she could go and like, she needed that.
Yeah.
And she didn't have it. It didn't exist.
And at first it was in person here in Atlanta. And then when COVID happened, we went virtual. And it used to be just once a month. And now that we're virtual, we do it every single Wednesday. So tonight we have one for the Partners of Trans Men. And then in the groups, everyone was like, well, I need support too. And I'm a partner of a trans female, so we created one. That wasn't my arena. So I asked a couple of the partners, hey, are y'all willing to just be there every night and spearhead it? They've done a wonderful job. And that's on every Tuesday night. So we have those two support groups, and then Trey has.
I have just the fellas every third Wednesday. So I think we met last week, And every first and third Friday, we have the Pull Up and Chill, which is a casual space just for trans men to come together and just talk and just kind of be,
and be loud. And you're in the house and you can hear them in there giggling and having a good time, just laughing. And I'm like, it's nice. Yeah, it's really nice.
I think this is beautiful, and the way that you found the space, you know, like that things are created because we see a lack in the community that we all need, whether it's a book, whether it's a support group, whether it's a nonprofit. And I want to hook you up with Denise and Sophie that I interviewed before this another time, because I think that they would be a great addition to work with you. I keep meaning to, so just if I want to remember to do this, because I think that as we meet people along the way, I think that we could all complement each other and help put things more forward. I know that you just mentioned, about, the facial hair coming in, or I would say the voice changes sometimes, or all different things happening. And so I wanted to know, like, how do you affirm, this part of Derek's transition, and how do you affirm certain things? I mean, Derek, I noticed that you're very affirming to how the transition affects Paula's life, and how do you affirm each other's life together and separately based on this process?
I think for me, it's just being there and trying to understand what he's going through, and him the same for me. I hear a lot of partners say, well, my partner, my transgender partner won't listen to this, or I feel bad telling them this. But the truth is, with Derek, it's always been like, I'm feeling this emotion. And just because I'm feeling this emotion doesn't mean that it's negative toward him. It doesn't mean anything. It's the fact that I'm feeling this. And in that moment, we need to address it, or need to look at it, or need to investigate it a little bit more. And the same with him. If he's going through something, he knows that he can come to me and say, this is how this certain thing made me feel. So I feel, just like I've always said, just the open, honest communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if I can't say how I'm feeling or what I'm going through to Paula, then who can I say it to? And so we are very intentional and open about our communication. And it doesn't matter what it is, because we can figure anything out together. And that's what she and I have kind of promised each other. If I'm nervous about anything, if she's nervous about anything, whatever, it's like, you know what, at the end of the day, we're going to lay down and put our heads on our pillow and roll over and talk to each other. Like, we know at the end of the day, we're going to have each other. And so we rest pretty assured in that. But I wanted to go back to something that you said, you were talking about, and I kind of lost my train of thought. We were talking about our groups a little bit, and I wanted to reiterate how important it was for me as a trans man to have a space like Just the Fellas. And so we created it with the thought process of like, okay, if we build it, they'll come. And it's been largely successful throughout COVID and before COVID. But what was really important and intentional for Soti and Just the Fellas was that we are all, one of my mentors, my auntie Tori, she would say this, we're all experts in our own experience. So at some point we had a different group for trans women, and it's not that it didn't really work out. It wasn't our narrative. And so we had to hold true to what was true, what we know. Yeah, what we know, what we can speak to firsthand. And so, but I wanted to talk, okay, and then I'll go to the affirming question. Paula, she does things like, I get really frustrated sometimes because a lot of guys will say it can be like years before their hair grow in, or like you can just like get what you get and it's a wrap. But a lot of times I'm in the mirror, like, is it filling in yet? Is it coming in? Like, I feel like that sometimes. And so I have confided that in her, and we'll be in the bed and she'll be like rubbing my beard and speaking positive words of affirmation. You're thick, you're growing. Yeah. And it's silly, but it really, like, it makes me feel so good. And like, she really understands, like, that it's a big thing for me. Another way that I like to spotlight the way that she affirms me and shows up for me is when we were choosing my name, she brought we had a whiteboard and we wrote down like a bunch of different things. Cause it's like, you get to name yourself, like you really want to take time with that.
Right.
It's
And
huge.
you had a lot of names and he was like, I like this name and this name and this name. So we wrote them up on the board and like, what do they look like? What do they sound like? How do they feel?
And it was like Sanjay, Roman, Mercer, all these different like really
What's the
cool
one I
names.
didn't like? Majorian.
Majorian.
I was like, that's a spice, honey.
And she was talking about marjoram, but so she was like, and then I had another friend, Phyllis, and she was like, everybody's gonna call you majority. And so it was just little silly conversations like that. But having her like be so involved in the process and like, okay, we're gonna try this name on. And we were just around the house saying it to each other. And so I wasn't on Facebook, like, you know, trying it out or whatever. Like she allowed me to have that safe space with her.
But it was ultimately his decision.
Yeah.
It was ultimately like, you know, those things are his and for him to own.
Mhm.
But it was like, a lot of things I found throughout the transition is we took time with it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you're not going to be an end result. You know, in my opinion, you'll always be transitioning.
It's a lifelong
know,
process. It's not a destination. It's
right.
a lifelong process.
So you can't get there next week. You can't get there next month. You can't. So enjoy the moment that you're in because you'll never be in that moment again, ever. And so enjoy that process and take time with it and know that at some point you'll be at the result to where, you know, you'll feel yourself. You'll see yourself as you see yourself, you know?
Yeah, agreed.
You know, I think it's great. You know, it's, I mean, you two crack me up. I can't even tell you, you know, Derek, you are pretty spicy, so I could see that name working. But anyway, that's but the truth is, you know, like there are some couples that the spouse, that the non-transitioning spouse is part of the journey of picking the name in a different way than you were. And, you know, although all these ways, like how they work it out, I mean, it's clear your chemistry is beautiful, and everybody's chemistry has its own way and everybody has their own needs. So that I think that, you know, your whiteboard idea is brilliant. I know other people have gone for walks and talked about it. There are people that they do versions of their own name. Some people don't change their name. And, you know, and I love the, you know, the part about the beard and all the hair, and there's all different aspects of a person's body, whether they do a medical transition or not. There are ways of doing that. Even using pronouns is a very affirming, you know that. And so, but some people have, you know, need time to adjust. Some people can't, you know, it seems that the fluidity for you, Paula, was easy, and for some people it's not. And so we want to also honor that, and that everybody who transitioned their status, the way that they affirm that for themselves is non-binary, and that's how they identify. And so for some people, facial hair is not essential, or getting, you know, no longer having facial hair can be very affirming for a person, you know. But
Dee, let me say one thing. This appears to be easy for me, but it wasn't all the time.
Good. That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm so glad that you're interjecting this. Good. I think that it's really important to show that you're going through a journey, and that I want to hear. Go ahead. Yeah,
because I came out as a lesbian at the age of 23. And at this point, I'd been, you know, 17 years fighting for my right to be a lesbian, fighting for my right to be able to love who I wanted to love and be accepted by family and everything. And then all of a sudden, here's something different that's being thrown at me and being thrown at my family, you know? And we had many of tears, many discussions about this. So it looks easy at this point, and it's because we've went through a lot. We had a lot of.
I would definitely agree. And part of it's because it was the going back and forth. Am I going to medically transition? Am I not going to medically transition? And are we going to just go? Am I going to quote unquote come out? What does it mean for her identity as a lesbian? Does that mean that she's straight now? And so communication is key, but largely our identity pieces that she was a whole person before me. She's still a whole person and vice versa. Also, her identity begins where mine ends. So
me being a lesbian ends where he's my exception, so it's two different pieces. I love him for him and he loves me for me. Yeah. And so her sexuality is just that, it's her sexuality. So her identifying as a lesbian does not lessen my identity as a man, trans person or anything. And I find that a lot of times it's really easy to get hung up on words, especially if it's brand new to you. You got a lot of labels that get forced down your throat, but once you figure out that it's really whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, I'm really glad because,
Amen.
Yes, amen. Right. Because sometimes when I'm interviewing people, we're seeing them years later or time later. And I don't want to give a false narrative there because it would be incorrect. And that I also want people to know that if there are plenty of people who start out being with one amount of feelings and thoughts, and then things change and it can go in either direction. And so that there is no linear path here and you don't need to arrive here. Just like you said, the transition is ever going on. So is the relationship. And so everything's moving forward and evolving, and that we need to, all four of us, I know, respect people's own journey and what they need to feel whole, whether they're the person in transition or the person who's not. And everybody's transition looks and sounds differently. Go right ahead, Lil. I saw the finger. I don't know if I should
Not that finger.
Not that finger. I see the pointer as a teacher. I see the pointer.
So we've got a question here in the group, and I find this all very, very interesting because working for Facialteam, we see a lot of couples coming where it's different, right? They're going from a heterosexual couple, and usually the partner who is transitioning is a trans woman. So I'm learning here. So thank you so much.
Right. Explain why that is, why they're usually trans women, because it's the FFS, right?
Right, exactly. We're talking people, they come to us for facial feminization. So we've got a question here for you, Paula. What's something that helped you manage because you said, it was difficult for you, that helped you manage the many changes within the relationship? Did you have a little, something that helped with that besides the water? and also, Derek, there's a question for Derek, but I'll let Paula go first.
Yeah, I think at the time it was just having the friends that I had around me at the time, and also Derek, being able to talk with him. But as things have progressed and now that we have our support groups, it is talking with people that go through the same thing. It's similar things, but it's not the same. So that's really, I think that's what helped me go through it, and realizing that this being with Derek is a choice I make every day, right? Him being with me is a choice. And it's at the end of the day, if the good outweighs the bad, then I'm willing to do it again, right? At the end of the month, if it's good outweigh, I'm willing to do it again, And sometimes, like, we had a couple months where it was like, oh, I don't know. But then we looked at the whole relationship all together. And
I'll tell you, we had a year where we was like,
yeah,
we gonna make it.
Yeah, we had some outside influences, but it was a year, and I was like, I don't really like the person you're becoming. That's not your core values. That's not who you are. And he was like, you're right. Like, I don't like this person either. This person's changing, and like, that's not me. And so when I look back over the years, though, the good has definitely outweighed the bad. So that's why that sustained us. Yeah. That's why we keep going. And I think
of the word love, like whenever you two are talking, I think there's like a level of love and respect for each other. I'm sorry to interject and cut you off there. I hope I didn't cut you, I just want to interject that what's so beautiful is that the love and the respect that you have, and that you have that communication to say, I don't like the person that I'm seeing, and the person being able to reflect on themselves and say, oh, okay. So Derek, continue. I just want to say, like, I just keep seeing the love between the two of you, you know?
Yeah, no problem. So if you see me looking down, I'm keeping notes. Yeah. So I wanted to go back to a comment that she made about the question, and you mentioned the groups, and I want to say, like, reiterate how important supportive spaces are, not just for me as a trans man, but for her as the partner of a trans man, as my wife, because shared experiences empower. They help you know that you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the only person in the world going through this. And I know for me, one of the best things has been for me to see like trans elders, and for them to talk to me and just pour into me via conversation. It makes me see, okay, I am going to be able to I'm going to get to the age, I'm going to be okay, like just having that experience, talking to them. So supportive spaces where you can share experiences and just kind of vent and let it go is super important.
Right.
I think it's great because I know you're real young, Derek, but you will be, as Paula will be too, but then the elder someday, and you'll be able to pass that on, and that we really want to respect people that came before us and learn from them and include them in the conversation. Even me at being, not 25 anymore, I still look to those that came before me and helped me to get where I am now as, a partner. And so is there something else you wanted to say, Derek, about this, or Paula?
No.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So what steps, question or thing, go ahead.
Yeah, we had the other question for Derek.
That's what
What's something that helped you feel safe with Paula throughout your transition?
Paula is an intentional ally. A lot of times we give people the title of ally way too quickly. Oh, they got their pronouns in their email. Oh, they wear pride. That's not enough. Paula is intentional about learning. And if I tell her, like, babe, I didn't like that. I didn't like the way that felt. That made me uncomfortable. And here's why. She listens. And it's not oh, well, I feel like you're being too, like, I've heard so much of that it's refreshing to hear from her. Like, okay, well, I apologize. I didn't realize it came across that way. I'm going to do better to change it. Or the intentionality, well, what could I have said so that it didn't feel like that? Because I don't want to make you feel like that. And I know, and that's the thing, like, I know she doesn't want to make me feel those things. So it's important for me to tell her when something bothers me or when something hurts me or something makes me feel some way. I have to tell her because she loves me more than anybody in the world. She doesn't want to hurt me. So that communication piece comes into play again. So just the open lines of communication is super important. And also, like, every now and again, I'm gonna say, like, once a year, we sit down and we're like, is this really where you want to be? Is this, are you still happy? And
that's not in the middle of a fight or in the middle of you having had issues the day before. It's just whenever. It's just sitting there and making sure that our paths are on the same path, that we're willing to be with each other and continue this journey.
Because we want to see each other happy.
Right.
I want to see her happy more than anybody, and she wants to see me happy. And, like, we have to be honest with each other in order for that to take place. So just the open and honest communication and the willingness to listen and be intentional about her allyship, and the coming into spaces and understanding that, like, it's a privilege to share that space. If we're in a place with Black people or Black trans people, she understands, like, sometimes, like, I just got to sit here and soak it up, and it's not for me to talk and this and that and the third.
And sometimes it's not my space.
And sometimes it's not her
so
space.
I'm often like, Trey, this is your space. This is where you need, but it's not mine.
And not making me feel like, oh, well, I can't go. So why are you going? She doesn't make me feel like that. Like, she understands. And those are all intentional things. The intentional allyship means giving up your seat, understanding that a space is not for you, making that space available to somebody else, learning as much as you can, and understanding that it is not my job to teach you all the time. Now, sometimes it's a thing, but putting
true.
that kind of labor on a Black person in America,
fair.
a Black trans person in America, that's extreme personification of your privilege.
Yeah.
So she understands what, it really means to be a very intentional ally.
Yeah. And a lot of times, like, I will tell him, I don't know what I didn't know, because growing up in the South, Caucasian, I didn't know. And so through him, I've learned a lot. And so sometimes, like just the other day, I asked him a question, hey, what does this mean? And he said, Google will answer you better. And I was like, okay, so I'll go to Google and I Google it, right? And sometimes he'll sit and he'll explain it from his point of view, because from my point of view, it's jaded. My point of view is a Southern white girl that was raised in a Baptist household. So it's totally different.
Yeah, can
I appreciate that.
make a comment here? And we're all a product of our surroundings, aren't we? So, and we, allies, when we talk about allies, it takes work to get out there. I wasn't immediately, an ally either. It's taken years for me to be able to say I feel like an ally. And so that's why I put this little poster up, because Ida Hobbit's coming up, which is the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Intersexphobia, and Transphobia. And it's on May 17th. So just wanted to get that out there for everybody, since it was pertinent to what we're talking about right now.
Thanks for sharing that, Lil. I love, the check-in is really important. I know, like it could get lost in there, and I love the way that you said that, Paula, that it's not in the middle of fight, in the middle of this, but it is the check-in, and I think every healthy couple this is a great tool for every couple that wants health of their relationship. What experiences have you had as a biracial couple? Because it may be, pertinent to the conversation for us to understand what, I love the little I work there. So I know, let's talk about this, because it would be remiss if we didn't. What challenges, what advantages, what
so one of the first experiences we had was we had gone to, we weren't even together at that point.
No, we were
so you
friends.
Just got to see it up close and personal, the racism. So we were in Tampa, and we had gone to Hooters, get some wings late at night, and
just wings.
Yeah, just wings. This Hooters is really cool because there's a dock where people can just ride their boat up and come in and eat.
Yep.
And
so it was that group of people, and then it was me and Trey.
Yeah, and so there weren't very many people. It was like 11 or 2, It was really late, and so there was this group of people, and they came in, and they came in, and they probably were just drinking, and then they left. And the guy who was steering the boat, he was like, everybody back on the boat, no N words. And so like Paula was like,
I stood up and was like,
yeah, and I was like,
started going off,
and so I was like, babe, it's more them than it is of us. Like, let's just leave, because this could really get very ugly very fast. So we've had that experience and experiences like that. As a Black trans man, that was one of the first ways that I knew I was passing. The older white lady said something
in public.
She got saucy with me in Publix, and so I got saucy back with her. But when I began to get saucy with her, she clutched her purse and she started backing up slowly. And I was just like,
but that's when she realized he was a man. And at that point he had
a Black man. The Black body is so weaponized in America.
Yeah.
Black skin is so weaponized, because I was merely giving her what she gave me, and she began to clutch her purse and back away. And at that moment, I knew I was passing because I was like, whoa, like, I'm just giving you, okay.
Just giving you exactly what you gave me.
Right. The silver lining in this really gross story, like the silver lining, that's what I see about the two of you. You look for the positive, even when somebody is saucing you, as you say,
Right.
Really.
But I think it's helped me, because I've become a really advocate for trying to teach white people about their racism. And it's really hard, because if I tell you because you're white, you're racist. You don't want to hear that. But the truth is you are. And the truth is it was born into you, especially here in the South. And you have to be intentional to change that and to learn something different.
Yeah.
So what do you talk to people together? Do you do it separately, or does it depend on the situation?
It depends on the situation, because a lot of times, especially being Black in America, is hard. I'm just gonna say it. Y'all know it. We're just gonna state what's obvious here. It's hard. I wouldn't choose anything else though. But it's what's really difficult a lot of times is no matter what your proximity is to whiteness, meaning how educated you are, how you dress, how your hair is cut, no matter what your proximity is to whiteness, which is what people perceive, professionalism is or whatever, if you have Black skin, everything else doesn't matter. So I can say, hey, you are born into these systems of oppression for me that benefit you. Therefore, by definition, that makes you racist. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person, that you burn crosses on your yard, but hey, this is what this means. People automatically shut their ears off. But if it's coming from Paula, a white, cis, hetero appearing woman, sometimes people are more open to listen. So unfortunately, you do have to pick your audience and, but I know that if she can get her foot in the door, I'll kick it down. So, we rely on that.
I love that. And I think that that's a real important statement, because in the end, your safety, both of your safety is what matters. And that any way you could start the conversation so that this conversation can occur, that's what this is about. And it's a sad state. It is so unjust. And in the end, I think it's important that the work that you're doing in many realms, not just one, the intersectionality of all of this, and, representing and showing people to be the best in themselves. And I think you two are very easy to receive what I call correction from. You're very, because people are I need to be corrected. We all need to be corrected. And, when you learn better, you do better, right? And I think it's Maya Angelou, and what happens is that being defensive won't help anything. That's what I heard you say when you two were talking, having your communication. And so did you find that your safety from changed, Derek, as a trans man? Did it change over time from the gender you were assigned at birth to your affirming gender? Did it not change, evolve or come into?
Well, so to speak to your comment about being defensive, I would say, especially if, first of all, me personally, if I see that you are saying or doing something that's problematic or racist or whatever, and you are a person who's close to me and I love you, or, I think, so I think some positive thought about you, then I'm going to try to correct you and say, hey, I don't know if you know, but this really comes across this way. So you may want to think about that. And so me doing that, I'm telling you, that action is telling you that I really care about you and I want you to think about the way that you could be perceived. However you receive that is on you. But if I didn't care, I wouldn't say anything. And I think sometimes that's missed because people get caught up in the notion of being defensive, right, which is easy to do if you feel like you're being attacked.
But something that you were talking about is the defensive part between us. It was kind of about us fighting. A lot of times we will look at each other and we'll get, aggravated with each other. And then we're like, no, we're not the issue. That's
problem is the issue. Yes.
We got to solve that problem.
Yes.
So let's fight against that together. You
know?
know?
And one of the people who's asking questions actually is someone who put something in my head one time. And so I use it a lot, and I'll tell Paula and she will tell me let's wait a minute. Let's talk to each other like two people who love each other. let's back up, because we love each other, and this is not, so I don't want to fight with you. I love you. I don't want to fight with you.
Right.
So
You're
let's
a
talk
team.
about people who love each
Right.
other.
You're a team together.
Right.
And I mean, I call you like a power team, you know, and that you're taking your experience, your life experiences, all of them in every realm, and you're using it to make the world a better place, a safer place, and a more educated space, because you're speaking from your truth, you know, from your experience, and you, but you're doing it with kindness, even with the most evil statements, even with the most hurtful statements. There's some way that the two of you find a way to lift up the situation. And that's really unique in people, because many people can't do that. And I experienced this in your book club. I experienced this when you talk about your nonprofit, that you're really there to do service. And it doesn't matter any place you dip into. You're there to educate and help people to really look at themselves and be respectful to you, because everybody deserves to be respected and heard and understood. You know, and so I know that it's almost time. And Lil, it seems like you have something to say.
Yeah, just to speak to what you were commenting on now, Dee. This conversation is in itself educational, and the people that are making comments here are you know, they're making that clear. Sophie said, Paula, listening to you is hearing a similar version of my own story, and so it's nice for her to feel like there's someone else out there who understands all the nuances of the partner and of your own as well, and as the relationship, the three things that are transitioning together. And King Teve here, thank you for listening in. Love the question that you asked, Dee, about the issue of being a biracial couple, and King T says, love how Derek uses his words, and also as support for Paula.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear that where I feel really blessed that we could have you both with us today, and that Derek, I'm so happy that you're wide awake now, because just get you started. If you get it, this is just an inkling of Derek's power and knowledge and way to express things. And Paula, you just like the dearest. And Sophie's one of the two that I mentioned I wanted to introduce you to. So I think we'll do that when this is done.
Definitely.
So, right, good. I'm glad that you're open to that. I knew you would be. I assume so. So you have something to say? Go right ahead.
Yes, just before you move on too far, I did want to answer your question about safety. She's nudging me like, shut up. But she's nudging me.
No, because I wanted to talk about the safety too.
I want to talk about the safety.
Well, I'm more scared now for him than I was before.
But I wanted to say, going from being a cisgender Black woman identifying as a masculine lesbian to identifying now as a trans man, it is largely a safety issue. It's like a double target, because as I said earlier, Black skin is already weaponized in America. You can't even exist. So that's a scary thing. But also, I mean, we've gone on road trips, and I think it's things that Paula didn't even realize or think about before. Like, we would go on a road trip. We went to Texas one time, and we were stopping at like a rest stop. Yeah. And there was a Confederate flag, or not a rest stop, it was a gas station.
Okay.
It was a Confederate flag. And I was like, okay, so I'm gonna stay in the car. Feel like you need to use the bathroom. I'm gonna wait for the next Loves, because I can't, Loves is a big thing down here. And so she was like, well, why? And I had to explain to her like about the Confederate flag. And basically it means like, come at your own risk. And so just little things like that, or the fact that now that I identify as a man, I got hair on my face, I can't go into a women's bathroom anymore, which sucks because they're usually cleaner. But also, like, in going into a men's bathroom, I don't use a stand-up piece, so I still got to sit down. So it's like, how am I going to finagle that Are people going to look at me funny? Can I just get in and out? Can I hold it until we get to the hotel or the Airbnb? All of those things. Yes, can I hold? Usually I can.
Yeah.
But all those things come into play now. So it's certainly a safety issue.
You know, this is like a really rich part. Paula, I want to address what you're saying because, you know, as a partner, I understand what you're, you know, part of what you want to bring up now. I think it's critical about your fears. You know, that's just, you know, I discussed, this is really important. Can you talk about the fear as a partner, what you're going to just say with the safety? I think it's critical.
So with Derek, to me, he passes all the time. So I'm not worried about him going into the bathrooms or where he's at. My fear is in America, he does have a target on his back. The fact that if he gets pulled over, it worries me, you know, it worries me. It could go either way, you know, and that scares me. It's the fact that, yeah, that's probably my biggest fear, you know.
You know, and so that's like, you know, a major fear for you, and understandably so. And I think that when whether a partner is a you know, person of color or a person who's transitioning, while people are transitioning, I mean, when you want to use a bathroom that affirms your gender, and sometimes you're not giving the appearance, that the partner can often be very nervous and very scared, not just bathrooms, but anywhere, going through the airport, going through, you know, security. There's all different levels that partners get, right? I see your face, so you know, right? And not to say that at all that I could never understand, my partner is not a person of color, all the other layers that go on, but which are major. I am not dismissing them in any way, but even the singular layer of a partner transitioning, the fear and nervousness, regardless of whether your partner is transitioning to male, female, non-binary, or identifies that way, there's different levels for different reasons in different settings with different people. And, you know, and then you add in all the other factors that can happen in the world. It really can be triggering for a partner and scary, and it's hard sometimes for people to even explain why they're getting agitated or nervous in a situation. I mean, the two of you are very articulate, but some people don't even understand that what's going on for them until they work with me in the workshops or in other spaces. And I'm like, could it be around this? And they're like, safety. And they're like, it never even crossed my mind. Why every time we go to this situation, I get so panicky and I don't really understand why. And so do you want to add anything in about that before your hair grew in, before you passed?
It wasn't so much a safety issue, because as long as my hair wasn't on my face, it was like, and still like, even, you know, now during COVID, we're wearing a mask and stuff, right? So a couple of weeks ago, or it's probably about a month ago, I went to Golden Crust to get like some curry chicken. And I was in there and the lady was like, blah, 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 ma'am. And I'm like, because I'm a big guy. And I was like, damn, not passing again. And so I was like, yeah, I'll take a beef patty too. Like trying to make my voice all deep. Right. And it's like, at the end of the day, like people's perceptions are just that, their truth, not mine. Mm-hmm. And so that doesn't mean that from time to time, I still don't get down in the dumps about dysphoria or my feelings don't get hurt, but I'm able now to, like you said, ask myself. That's one of the things I've learned through therapy, is like to ask myself questions when I'm getting this feeling. I'm like, okay, well, why are you feeling like that? And what can you do anything to change it? Or can you, you know, so asking myself a series of questions and just being able to do some of that reflection has been super, super helpful for me.
Yeah, you know, I before when you mentioned your therapist, I laughed out loud. It might not have seemed like appropriate. It's just I was surprised that you gave your therapist, which is totally cool. You gave your therapist full name, and I'm like, that's what you're all about. Like, you know, like this is who I am. This is my therapist. This is my this, and
she's amazing.
Giving the props to, you know, to those people and saying, you know, they're important in my life, and I think that is very important that because you brought it up a few times, is that medical health professionals, mental health professionals, I should say, therapists really can make a huge difference, and that to have a place as couples, as an individual, and that it's real important, and that you said their full name, and I was like, I know you might have been listening, but when I said to Paula, this is live and you're going to give personal information, and you two are such naturally comfortable people with yourselves, which is so evident to me all the time, within yourself. I call that your part of your power, that you end up sharing that information. So it is beautiful that you're able to process that. And I think it's I know we're running over time, so we'll stop in a minute. I think it's really important that that's a level in with the pandemic, with masks, and how people are using other social cues like their voice, because maybe you can't see a person's facial hair. And that I think that it's also because being misgendered is so triggered. So dysphoria kicks in. There's a million things that kick in, and even safety. And that's something that other people take for granted. But the trans community cannot take that for granted. And our voice, powerful tool. A lot of people identify, not just, and also, foreheads, different, gestures, mannerisms. And, I noticed, people walking a little like more in a way that they might not naturally when you can see the facial hair, and that's all about the adjustments of gender and how people read people's gender based on everything before the voice is involved,
Correct. And
we
I
call
want
those
to
the secondary characteristics.
Exactly.
Right.
Major.
I wanted to speak to you talking about my therapist. It's important for me to say her name because she has helped my life tremendously, and I want to give her flowers as much as I can, before and after our sessions, right? But I think it's really important. I really want to say that it's really important especially for me as a trans men get a therapist. I recommend it. I'm speaking on behalf of Derek. It has helped me tremendously because I remember before I got a therapist, I kept waking up in the middle of the night just crying and just like this heavy, like heaving of my chest and crying, and I couldn't figure it out until like now I figured out I was going through my own grieving process because I was losing my former self, and I needed somebody to help me process that and get through that, because transition, make no mistake about it, transition is about loss. It could mean family, it could mean friends, it could mean everything you've known, but most importantly, it's losing your former self to get to, the self that you want to be, your idealized self. But it's loss through and through. It's loss, and we need to be able to process that loss. So having a therapist has been super important for me.
Derek, I write about this a lot, and it's a big part of the workshops. And it was one of the questions, and because at the time I was trying to pick and choose, so I'm so grateful you brought. I told you I was going to probably talk about grief, and that I wanted to know, like, did either one of you, but you've answered this a little bit for yourself, ever experience any type of grief or mourning during this process? Maybe it would be being identified as a lesbian for you, Paul, or maybe there's a million things, and I don't know how much time we really have to spend on this, but grief is could play a major factor in transitioning. Paula, do you want to add something about this for yourself?
I don't think so. I don't. For me, the grief was me just finding myself and me being able to have someone to talk to.
Okay.
So I think I switched that grief into trying to be the person that I always wanted to be for other people.
Right. So yeah, and I don't even, sometimes the word that's better is loss. What are you losing? Which is, a bit how Derek was expressing it too. And so I think it's an important conversation, and everybody doesn't experience this, or it's just different parts of the relationship can be impacted by this. And so is there anything that you would want others to know that you haven't said yet that you feel would be important, or something I didn't ask that you wish I had? before we get off?
I would say that for anybody who is contemplating transition, first of all, take your time. Be patient with yourself. It's all about you, and don't let anybody convince you that it's not. But take your time and be patient with yourself. Be patient with yourself. And if you're able to, get a therapist.
Have grace. Give yourself grace. Both the partners and the trans individual, give yourself grace, because there's going to be ugly times throughout the whole thing.
And if you are a trans person and you're already transitioning and you're in what I call my ugly duckling stage, again, be patient with yourself and understand. Dysphoria is a mug, I understand. But when you have those really low moments, understand that greater is later, but you got to be around for it. Yeah. So, keep on keeping on.
It's going to get better.
That. I can't think of a better way to end this interview on those wise words. And really, the same thing goes for the partner, the grace that you're speaking of, Paula, and being your best self, and remembering that, we're all here to love each other, and we're all here to empower each other and lift each other's voices. And if we do that, we're doing the service that we're all meant to do. So any of the information about the nonprofits anything about the book clubs, the books, we're going to be doing another, I'll be, blessed enough to team up with Lil to do in Facialteam. I just have so much respect for them. On the 19th of May, I'll be interviewing a mom, a couple of people maybe from a family as their adult child, adult though, was transitioning. And I think that you would want to tune in for that. It'll be, they're really wonderful people. So I thank you both so very much for this time, for sharing of yourself, for all you add to the community, to all the kindness that you show and patience. That's very important in the journey. And so Lil, do you have anything you want to add?
Just to mention to you all, thank you so much. And Sophie brought up a book, and I looked it up and I shared the link in the comments, and I think it is in line with what you're talking about right now, Dee. It's called Talk to Me Like I Am Someone You Love, which she used as a part of the transition as her partner transitioned. So there's a lot of resources out there, in addition to, of course, the workbooks, which are fantastic.
No, there are tons of amazing resources, and I really want to say that. And really ask people what they use, and go to the support groups, and and conferences are a great resource. And I think we all met there at different conferences. I know we all talked about, the Philly one, but there are plenty of great ones. Derek brought up some, and I think that really researching that resource is great. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead. What do you want to say? I'm going to say, goodbye, and send, we always do the love.
Yes. I just want to say, I think that it would be a great way for businesses to do their, corporate social responsibility, and send people in their companies to these conferences, and come back and report back to their colleagues and about what they learned, maybe as a way of, helping to just open people's minds a little bit more and more every day. So thank you so much, Derek.
Can I plug our website right quick?
Yes. I shared it. I shared it in the comments.
Already shared, but go right ahead.
Okay, Ubuntu. She's nudging me again. UbuntuInc.org, UBUNTUINC.org. You can send us a message through there. You can give us a donation if you're really feeling generous. And I just wanted to plug that. You can find out all the information about our groups.
Find us on Facebook,
Instagram. Yeah.
Yep. Check them out. They're fantastic.
in the description of this video, which is now going to be saved onto the YouTube channel for people's viewing pleasure forever and ever, are all the links to Dee's website and her books, and also to Paula and Derek's nonprofit organization, ubuntuinc.org. And so thank you, everybody. Please give us a hand, clap, show your claps in the comments so we know that you like this content. And I also want to just repeat what Derek just said, which is give your transgender and non-binary or gender questioning loved one and their partners a big hug every day, but especially on May 17th, which is Ida Hobbit. And stay tuned for upcoming events. I've shared in the comments also a link to our schedules and our newsletter. So click like, follow, and everything, all that good stuff. And join our peer group if you're interested in learning more, particularly about facial feminization. And yeah.
May 7th, we'll see you May 19th.
May 19th, we'll be back, Dee and I, again, as she said, with a mom of an adult person who transitioned, and it'll be very interesting to hear their story. And that will be our fifth in this series. So thank you, everybody. We love you. Health and happiness matters. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Yes.